Park Minu stood alone in the center of the Grand Assembly Hall. The room was massive. It could hold 10,000 beings from across the galaxy. Today, representatives from 800 species watched him from their seats. Some were tall as buildings. Others floated in liquid tanks. A few were just clouds of light. All of them looked down at the small human with the same expression: boredom, annoyance. Some did not even try to hide their disgust. Minu had stood in this same spot many times over the past 30 years. He was old now. His hair had turned gray. His hands sometimes shook, but his voice remained strong as he spoke into the translator device. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," he said, "I come before you again to request aid for the human colonies of Sigma 4, Horizon Bay, and Nu. A plague has killed 200,000 of our people. Our medical technology cannot stop it. We ask only for access to the cure that the Empire developed 3 centuries ago." Silence filled the hall. Then came the sound that Minu had learned to hate: laughter. The High Commander was a creature that looked like a mix of lizard and nightmare. He stood 12 feet tall. His scales were the color of dried blood. When he laughed, it sounded like bones breaking. "The human speaks again," they said. "How many times must we explain? The medical database is not for lesser species. Your kind lives only 80 years. Why waste resources keeping you alive a little longer?" More laughter echoed through the hall. Minu felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his face calm. He had learned long ago that showing anger only made things worse. 200,000 people, he said quietly. Children, families. They are dying while we have this conversation. The delegate, a being made of crystal and light, flickered with what might have been amusement. "Then perhaps your species should have evolved better immune systems. Natural selection, ambassador. You understand the concept, yes?" Minu closed his eyes for a moment. He thought about his daughter on Nu. She had sent him a message last week. Her youngest son was sick. The doctors said he had 3 days left. "I understand," Minu said. "I understand perfectly." He turned and walked out of the hall. No one tried to stop him. No one cared enough to stop him. 200 years. That was how long humanity had been part of the Galactic Council. In 2147, the first alien ships had appeared in Earth's sky. Humanity had been excited, hopeful. They thought they were joining a community of advanced civilizations. They thought they would learn from older and wiser species. They thought wrong. The Council had rules for new members. Humanity had to pay taxes, heavy taxes. Half of everything they produced went to the Council treasury. In exchange, they received protection and trade rights. At least that was the promise. The protection never came. When pirates raided human ships, the Council said it was not their problem. When human colonies were attacked, the Council looked away. The trade rights were a joke. Humans could only buy what the Council allowed them to buy: old technology, broken equipment, things that other species had thrown away centuries ago. And the worst part, humans were useful. They were small and clever. They could work in places where larger species could not fit. They lived short lives, so they worked hard and fast. Human workers were sent to mining stations, to factory worlds, to places where the work was dangerous and the pay was nothing. Some species called humans the servant race. They meant it as an insult. They did not know how much that insult burned. Captain sat in her small quarters on the military station orbiting Earth. She was 32 years old. Her black hair was cut short in military style. Her eyes were hard. They had not always been hard, but that was before last month. On her desk was a photograph. It showed a young man with a bright smile. Her brother. He had been the captain of a colony transport ship. 300 families had trusted him to take them to a new home on a distant world. They never arrived. A raiding party had intercepted them. The Council called it a commercial dispute. They said the ship was carrying illegal goods. There were no illegal goods. There were only families, children, dreams. They destroyed the ship anyway. They called it enforcement of trade regulations. The council accepted their explanation. Case closed. Had watched the official report. She had read every word, and something inside her had changed forever. Her communicator buzzed, a message from Ambassador Park. He was returning from the council meeting. Request, again. Turned off the communicator and looked out the window at Earth below. Blue and green and white. Beautiful, fragile, home. She wondered how much longer they could survive like this. On Earth, in a building that was plain and simple on the outside but stretched deep underground, President waited for the ambassador's return. He was a tall man with a calm face. People said he never showed emotion. People were wrong. He simply chose when to show it. Around him sat the leaders of the United Earth Parliament, generals, scientists, diplomats. They had all seen the message from Menu. They all knew what the council had said. Perhaps your species should learn its place. Read those words again on his screen. He had read them 100 times already. Each time, he felt the same cold fire building in his chest. He looked around the room at the faces of his people. Some were angry, some were sad, some looked defeated. 200 years, said quietly. We have waited 200 years. We have been patient. We have been peaceful. We have followed their rules and begged for scraps from their table. He stood up slowly. And they tell us to learn our place. The room was silent. I think, said, it is time we taught them what humanity's place really is. He pressed a button on his desk. A hidden door in the wall slid open. Behind it was a room that did not officially exist. Inside that room were screens showing ships, thousands of ships, weapons that no alien had ever seen, technology that humanity had hidden for 150 years. The room was called Project Ember, and it was about to wake up. Far away on Nu, a little boy took his last breath. His grandmother held his hand and cried. She did not know that her grandson's death would change the galaxy forever. She only knew that he was gone and that no one had come to help. But someone had been watching, someone had been counting, and the count had finally reached its end. Humanity's patience was over. 3 months passed after the Council's final insult. On the human colony world of Nu, life continued as normal. Farmers worked their fields. Children went to school. Families gathered for dinner and talked about simple things. They did not know that their world was about to become famous. They did not know that their names would be remembered for 1,000 years. Dr. Han woke up early that morning. She studied alien plants and animals. Her research station sat on a hill overlooking the main city. From her window, she could see the market where people bought fresh vegetables. She could see the park where old men played chess. She could see the school where her niece was learning to read. It was a peaceful morning, the last peaceful morning Nu would ever have. The ships appeared at noon. There were 20 of them. They dropped from the sky like stones and landed in the middle of the city. Their commander was named. He was known across the galaxy for his cruelty. He stepped out of his ship and looked at the humans who had gathered to see what was happening. People of Nu, he announced through speakers that made his voice echo across the whole city. Your harvest this season was excellent. The Galactic Council thanks you. As payment for our protection, you will give us 70% of everything you have grown. The crowd murmured. A man stepped forward. He was the colony's leader, a simple man, a farmer who had been elected because people trusted him. 70%, he said. That is more than twice what we paid last year. If we give you that much, our people will starve. Laughed, it was an ugly sound. Then grow more next year or grow less and die. It makes no difference to me. We cannot agree to this, said. His voice shook, but he did not step back. It is not fair, it is not right. Stopped laughing. His eyes grew cold. Fair, right. Little human, do you think anyone cares what is fair or right for your kind? He raised his hand. The soldiers behind him lifted their weapons. You have 1 hour to begin loading your harvest onto our ships. If you refuse, there will be consequences. 1 hour. The people of Nu spent it making a choice. They could give up their food and watch their children go hungry, or they could stand together and say no. They chose to stand. When the hour ended, the harvest was still in the warehouses. The people had gathered in the main square, thousands of them, families holding hands, old and young standing side by side. They were scared, but they were not moving. Looked at them and shook his head. "Stupid creatures," he said, "you had your chance." He gave the order. The weapons did not shoot bullets or lasers. They shot fire, liquid fire that stuck to everything it touched. The first blast hit the school, the second hit the hospital, the third hit the crowd in the square. Dr. Hen watched from her research station on the hill. She saw the fire spread. She heard the screams. She saw people running, burning, falling. She saw children looking for their mothers. She saw her niece's school collapse into flames. She ran toward the city. She did not think about danger. She only thought about helping. But before she reached the bottom of the hill, they turned their weapons toward her station. She looked back just in time to see it explode. Her colleagues, her research, her life's work, gone in a flash of orange light. When the fires finally stopped, 12,000 people were dead. The city was ash and smoke. The survivors wandered through the ruins, calling out names of people who would never answer. Loaded his ships with the harvest and left. Before he went, he sent a message to the Galactic Council. Minor incident on human colony. Resistance to lawful trade collection. Situation resolved. The council marked the report as read and filed it away. But someone else was reading too. On Earth, President received the images from Nu within the hour. Hidden satellites that the council did not know about had recorded everything. Every death, every scream, every moment of horror. Called an emergency meeting, not the public parliament, the other one, the secret one. The leaders who knew about Project Ember gathered in the underground room. Their faces were pale. Some had tears in their eyes. Admiral, a man who had commanded ships for 40 years, had to look away from the screen. "This is not new," said quietly. "This has happened before on dozens of our colonies. We have been quiet. We have been patient. We have told ourselves that someday things would get better." He turned off the screen. "Things will never get better, not unless we make them better." Admiral stood up. He was a large man with a serious face. His hair was white, but his eyes were sharp. "Mr. President, I believe it is time." "Time for what?" asked O, the young diplomat who had only recently joined the inner circle. Walked to a control panel and pressed several buttons. The walls of the room changed. Screens lit up showing images that had never seen before. Ships, thousands of ships, not the small transport vessels that humanity was allowed to have. These were warships, beautiful, deadly, and completely secret. "For 150 years," explained, "we have been building, in caves beneath our oceans, in hollowed-out asteroids, in places the Council never thought to look. We let them believe we were weak. We let them think we had no weapons. We played the part of the helpless lesser species." Engineer stepped forward. She was small and quiet, but her eyes burned with pride. "I helped design these ships," she said. "We call them the fleet, 3,000 warships, faster than anything they have, stronger than anything they have. Every piece of technology that we stole, we studied, we improved." Stared at the screens. Her mouth was open. How did we hide this for so long?" "Because they never looked," said. "They were so sure we were nothing. They were so convinced we were weak. They never imagined we could be a threat." He looked around the room at his people. "The question now is simple. Do we continue to hide? Do we wait for another massacre, another generation of our children growing up as servants and slaves?" No one spoke. "Or do we show them who we really are?" Admiral stood at attention. "The fleet is ready, sir. Give the word." Captain stepped into the room. She had been listening from the doorway. Her eyes were red from crying, but her voice was steady. My brother died because we were afraid to fight. The children of Nu died because we were afraid to fight. How many more have to die before we stop being afraid? Looked at her, he saw the pain in her face. He saw the determination. He saw humanity's future. Very well, he said. Contact Ambassador Park. Tell him to prepare for one final visit to the Grand Assembly. He picked up a pen. On his desk was a document that had been written and rewritten 100 times over the past century. The Declaration of War. If they want to see humanity's true place in the galaxy, said, we will show them. He signed his name. The wolves were waking up. The Grand Assembly Hall was full. All 847 member species had sent their representatives. This was unusual. Most meetings only drew a few hundred, but word had spread that the humans were requesting the floor. After the incident on Nu, everyone wanted to see what the little creatures would do. Would they cry? Would they beg? The thought was entertaining. Ambassador Park Minu walked into the hall. He looked different today. He did not shuffle with his head down like he usually did. His back was straight. His steps were firm. He wore a simple black suit instead of the fancy diplomatic robes. Some of the delegates noticed this and found it strange. Most did not care. The High Commander was sitting in his usual seat. He had not been punished for Nu. Why would he be? Humans were nothing. Killing them was like stepping on insects. He smiled when he saw Minu approach the speaker's platform. Look, said loudly to the delegate beside him. The human has come to apologize. Perhaps he will cry again. I always enjoy watching them cry. Laughter rippled through the hall. Minu reached the platform and stood still. He waited. The laughter slowly died down. The delegates looked at him with bored eyes, waiting for the usual speech, the usual begging, the usual pathetic display. Instead, Minu reached up and removed the diplomatic sash from his shoulder. This sash was a symbol of his position. Every ambassador wore one. Removing it in the hall was a serious thing. He dropped it on the floor. The hall went silent. For 200 years, Minu said, his voice calm and clear, humanity has been a member of this council. For 200 years we have followed your rules. We have paid your taxes. We have sent our people to work in your mines and factories. We have asked for nothing but fairness. He paused and looked around the room. His eyes moved from face to face, from species to species. You gave us contempt, he continued. We asked for protection. You gave us chains. We asked for medicine to save our dying children. You laughed and told us to accept death. The High Commander shifted in his seat. Something about the human's voice was wrong. It did not sound defeated. It did not sound afraid. 3 months ago, Minu said, your soldiers burned 12,000 innocent people on Nu, children, families. People whose only crime was asking to keep enough food to survive. And this council did nothing. You marked the report as read. You filed it away. You forgot. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. We did not forget. He pressed a button. A massive hologram appeared above his head, filling the center of the hall. It showed images. The burning city, the screaming people, the children running from flames, the bodies, so many bodies. Delegates looked away. Some made sounds of discomfort, but none of them spoke. This is what you call a minor incident, Minu said. This is what you call the resolution of a trade dispute. This is what humanity is worth to the Galactic Council. He let the images play for a full minute. Then he turned them off. Today, he said, the United Earth Federation formally withdraws from the Galactic Council. Now there were sounds of surprise. Whispers spread through the hall. Leave the council. No species had ever left the council. It was unthinkable. Minu raised his hand for silence. And as of this moment, he said, a state of war exists between humanity and every species that voted against the new resolution. That includes the Empire. the Dynasty, and 47 other members of this assembly. For a long moment no one moved, then burst into laughter. It was loud and ugly and echoed through the silent hall. "War," he roared. "The insects declare war. With what army? With what ships? We could destroy every human world in a week." Minyu smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "Could you?" He pressed another button on his device. The hologram changed. Now it showed space, stars, and ships. Thousands of ships emerging from behind asteroids, rising from hidden bases, appearing from places that should have been empty. "We call this the fleet," Minyu said. 3,000 warships, built in secret over 150 years. Every ship is faster than yours. Every weapon is stronger than yours. You thought we were building simple transports. You thought we were too primitive to understand your technology. The ships on the hologram moved into formation. They were beautiful and terrible, like wolves gathering for a hunt. "You were wrong." At that exact moment across the galaxy, things began to happen. On Nexus Prime itself, the lights flickered. In the weapons factories, machines stopped working. On the shipyards, docking clamps failed and ships drifted into each other. Agent Lee sat in a small room beneath the Grand Assembly. She was one of thousands of human workers who had been living on Council worlds for years. Servants, cleaners, technicians, nobody important, nobody worth watching. All of them were spies. Pressed a final button on her console. The defense grid around Nexus Prime went dark. Every weapon satellite, every sensor array, every shield generator, all offline. Above her, she heard the sounds of panic beginning. In the hall was screaming orders into his communicator. No one was answering. The delegate was flickering wildly, its crystal body flashing with what might have been fear. Other delegates were running for the exits. The council guards were pointing weapons at Minyu, but none of them fired. They were too confused, too scared. Minyu stood calmly in the center of the chaos. "You called us primitive," he said, and his voice cut through the noise. "You called us weak. You said we should learn our place." He walked toward the exit. The guards stepped back. They did not want to touch him. "We have learned it," Minyu said, "and it is not beneath you." He reached the door and stopped. Behind him, the hall was in complete disorder. Delegates were screaming at each other. Alarms were ringing. The hologram still showed the fleet, now moving toward space. "One more thing," Minyu said. He turned to look at. "I watched the recordings from Nu. I saw your face as you gave the order to fire. You were smiling." Scales had turned pale. He looked nothing like the proud commander who had laughed just minutes ago. "Captain also watched those recordings," Minyu continued. "Her brother was killed by your raiders last year. She has asked for the honor of leading the fleet that will come for you." He opened the door. Outside, a human shuttle was waiting. Captain sat in the pilot's seat. She nodded at Minyu as he climbed aboard. "They're going to come after us with everything they have," she said. Minyu buckled his safety belt and looked out the window at the chaos they were leaving behind. "Good," he said. "Let them." The shuttle lifted off and shot toward the stars. Behind them, the mighty Galactic Council fell into panic and confusion. The great powers that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years were scrambling to respond to a threat they had never imagined. Humanity was no longer begging. Humanity was hunting. And the wolves had finally been set free. The Grand Fleet was the most feared force in the galaxy. 500 warships, each one the size of a small city. They had conquered 100 worlds. They had never lost a battle. When they moved through space, other species ran away. Admiral watched them approach on his command screen. 50 human ships faced them. They outnumbered them 10 to 1. By every calculation, by every rule of galactic warfare, humanity should retreat. They should run. They should hide. Smiled. "Admiral," his communications officer said, "the commander is sending a message. He says if we surrender now, he will kill us quickly." "That is very kind of him," replied. "Send this response. We do not accept surrenders from the enemy, but if they want to run, we will give them a 5-minute head start." The officer stared at him. "Sir." "Send it." The message was sent. On the flagship, Commander read the human's response and laughed. His officers laughed with him. 50 ships against 500. The humans had gone insane. "Destroy them," ordered. "Make it slow. I want other species to see what happens when insects challenge the Empire." The fleet moved forward. Their ships were massive and powerful. Their weapons could crack planets. They had won every battle they had ever fought. This battle would be different. The human ships did not fight like other species. They did not line up in neat formations. They did not exchange fire from a distance. Instead, they scattered. They moved in patterns that the computers could not predict. They were fast, so fast. The targeting systems could not lock onto them. "What are they doing?" demanded. "Why can't we hit them?" Before anyone could answer, the first ship exploded. The humans had developed a new weapon. They called it the. It fired tiny projectiles at incredible speeds. The projectiles were so small that shields ignored them, but once inside a ship, they expanded and exploded. 1 needle could destroy an engine. 10 needles could kill a battleship. The fleet had thousands of. Within the first hour, they lost 50 ships. They had not killed a single human vessel. Their commanders screamed orders. Their crews panicked. They had never faced anything like this. The human ships danced around them like wolves around wounded prey. They struck and retreated. They appeared from blind spots and vanished before they could respond. They fought together in perfect coordination, each ship knowing exactly what the others were doing. Commander watched his fleet dying around him. His scales had turned the color of ash. "How?" he whispered. "They are primitives, they are nothing. How is this possible?" On the human flagship, Admiral answered a question he would never hear. "You spent 200 years making us serve you. You put humans on every ship, in every station, in every corner of your empire. Did you never think we were watching, learning, preparing?" The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Grand Fleet was gone, not defeated, gone, every ship destroyed or captured. Commander's flagship was the last to fall. He refused to surrender. He died still believing that somehow this had to be a mistake. News of the battle spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. The Grand Fleet destroyed by 50 human ships. It was impossible. It had to be a lie. But the evidence was everywhere. Debris fields where the mighty fleet had been. Recorded transmissions of commanders begging for help that never came. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Over the next 6 months, humanity showed the universe what 200 years of anger looked like. Commander Shin led a strike team against 3 shipyards. His soldiers moved through the stations like ghosts, shutting down defenses and capturing ships before the enemy knew they were there. By the time reinforcements arrived, was already gone, flying away in stolen vessels that now belonged to humanity. Dr. Han found a different way to fight. She had lost everything on Nu, her colleagues, her research, her niece. She could have become bitter. She could have wanted only revenge. Instead, she chose something harder. She told the truth. Using captured communication networks, she broadcast the evidence of council crimes across the galaxy. Not just against humans, against dozens of species. Centuries of oppression, worlds burned, peoples enslaved, histories erased. She showed everything. "The Council calls us lesser species," she said in her broadcasts. "But who decides what is lesser? The ones with the biggest guns, the ones who have been stealing and killing the longest." Her words reached billions of beings. Many of them had never questioned the Council before. Now they began to ask, what if the humans are right? What if we have been living under a lie? On the border of known space, Diplomat O met with the. They were a quiet species, thin and graceful, with silver skin and sad eyes. The council had enslaved them for 3,000 years. They had no army, no weapons, no hope. Until now. "We cannot fight," the leader said. "We do not know how." Smiled gently. "You do not need to fight. You need to choose. Stand with the council that has hurt you for 3,000 years, or stand with humanity. We are not asking you to die for us. We are asking you to live. Free." The joined humanity's alliance. So did the one by one, the species that the council had called worthless and weak came together. Not because humans forced them, because humans asked them. 6 months after the war began, the fell. Not in fire, not in destruction. Humanity was not the council. Admiral landed his shuttle on the steps of the Imperial Palace. Behind him, human soldiers stood in neat lines. Above him, human ships filled the sky. The Emperor, a being of pure light in a crystal body, watched him approach. "You have won," the Emperor said. His voice was like breaking glass. "What now? Will you destroy us? Will you enslave us as we enslaved others?" Looked at the Emperor for a long moment. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a simple cloth flag, blue and green, Earth's colors. He planted it in the ground. "No," he said, "we will not destroy you. We will not enslave you. That is what you would do. We are not you." He pointed at the flag. "You are not conquered. You are liberated. Every military base on your planet has been disabled. Every warship has been grounded. But your cities are untouched. Your people are safe. Your culture will continue." The Emperor flickered with confusion. "I do not understand. If you do not want to rule us, what do you want?" Turned to leave. Over his shoulder he said, "We want you to learn what freedom means. Real freedom, not power over others. Freedom from the need to have power over others." He stopped and looked back. "There is a difference between conquering and liberating. You have 10,000 years of history. Figure it out." He walked back to his shuttle and flew away. The Emperor stood alone on the steps of his palace, surrounded by the ruins of everything he had believed in. For the first time in his very long life, he had something new to think about. Across the galaxy, humanity's message was spreading, not just through weapons, through actions. Human ships brought food to starving colonies. Human doctors treated alien wounded, even from enemy species. Human engineers helped rebuild what the war had broken. The Council had ruled through fear. Humanity would lead through hope. And the galaxy was beginning to understand the difference. 1 year had passed since the day Park Min-yu dropped his diplomatic sash on the floor of the Grand Assembly. 1 year since humanity declared war on the most powerful alliance in the galaxy. 1 year since everything changed. The Galactic Council still existed, but it met in a different hall now, on a different world. The new assembly chamber was on Earth in a city called Seoul. It was not as large as the old one. It was not as grand, but it was filled with something the old hall had never known. Hope. President stood at the head of the table. Around him sat representatives from 900 species, not 847 anymore. 53 new members had joined, species that the old council had called too small, too weak, too primitive to matter. Now they had voices. Now they had votes. The delegate sat near the back. His name was, he was not a commander or a warrior. He was a teacher. The people had chosen him themselves in their first real election in 1,000 years. He looked uncomfortable in this room of equals. He had not yet learned how to see other species as anything but enemies or servants. But he was trying. That was more than anyone had expected. Near the front, the delegate shimmered quietly. The old emperor was gone, not killed, retired. They had decided they did not want emperors anymore. They wanted to choose their own leaders. It was strange and frightening for them, but also, some admitted, exciting. Looked around the room and felt something he had not felt in years: satisfaction. "Welcome," he said, "to the first session of the Galactic Accord of Equals. Before we begin, I want to make something clear. Humanity did not fight this war to become the new rulers of the galaxy. We did not burn your fleets and free your slaves so that we could take their place. He paused. We fought because we had no choice. We won because we refused to become what we were fighting against. And now we build something new, together, or not at all. He pressed a button, and a document appeared on every delegate's screen. The new charter, the rules that would govern the galaxy from this day forward. One vote per species, not per empire, not per wealth. One vote. The smallest species has the same voice as the largest. The youngest civilization has the same rights as the oldest. No more lesser species. No more servant races. No more children dying because someone decided their lives were worth less than others. He looked directly at the delegate, looked back. There was shame in his eyes, but also something else, something that might become respect. Some of you were our enemies, said. Some of you killed our people, burned our colonies, laughed at our pain. We remember this. We will always remember this. The room was very quiet. But we choose to build instead of destroy. We choose to teach instead of punish. We choose to believe that beings can change, that civilizations can learn, that the future does not have to repeat the mistakes of the past. He sat down. Let us begin. Outside the assembly hall, the city of Seoul was alive with color and noise. For the first time in history, beings from across the galaxy walked its streets, and humans all mixed together. Some looked nervous, some looked curious, a few looked happy. Change was hard, but it was happening. Captain, now Fleet Admiral, watched from a balcony overlooking the city. Her uniform was covered with medals. Her name was famous across the galaxy. The human who had destroyed the Grand Fleet, the warrior who had brought empires to their knees. She did not feel like a hero. She felt tired. Beautiful view, said a voice behind her. She turned. Park Min-yu walked up to stand beside her. His hair was completely white now. The past year had aged him 20 years, but his eyes were bright. Secretary General, she said, nodding respectfully. Congratulations on the appointment. Min-yu laughed softly. Secretary General of the Galactic Accord of Equals. When I was young, I dreamed of being an ambassador. I never imagined this. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the crowds below. Do you think it will work? Asked. This new galaxy we are trying to build. Min-yu thought about the question. It was a good question. The honest answer was that he did not know. Old hatreds ran deep. Old habits were hard to break. There would be problems, fights, maybe even wars again someday. I think, he said slowly, that we have planted a seed. What grows from it depends on everyone, not just humans, everyone. He pointed at a group below. A child was teaching a human child some kind of game. They were laughing. Nearby, an adult watched them with a strange expression. Not anger, not disgust. Confusion, maybe. Like he was seeing something he did not understand but wanted to learn. That, Min-yu said, that is why it will work. Not because of treaties or laws or fleets, because of that. Watched the children play. She thought about her brother. She thought about Nu. She thought about all the people who had died so that this moment could exist. I hope you are right, she said. So do I. Far away on the rebuilt colony of Nu, Dr. Han was planting a garden. The city was new. The buildings were fresh. The people had come from many worlds, not just Earth. Humans and all working together to build something from the ashes. In the center of the city was a memorial, 12,000 names carved in stone. One of them was her niece. Every morning walked past it. Every morning she touched the stone and remembered. But she did not let the past trap her. The dead did not want her to be sad forever. They wanted her to live, to build, to hope. Her garden was full of plants from different worlds, flowers that had never grown together before. Some people said it would not work. The plants were too different. They needed different things. They would fight each other for sunlight and water. But knew better. Life wanted to live. Given the chance, different things could learn to grow together. She looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there, the new council was meeting. Somewhere up there, her friends were building a new galaxy. And here, on the ground, she was building something too. A flower bloomed. It was purple and gold and unlike anything she had ever seen. A new color, created by mixing plants from 3 different worlds. Something that had never existed before. She smiled. 20 years later, an old man sat on a bench in New Central Park. Park Menu had retired long ago. His work was done. The galaxy he had helped create was growing and changing without him. That was as it should be. Beside him sat, she was old too now. Her hair was white, her face lined with years, but her eyes still held fire. Some things never changed. They watched children play on the grass in front of them. Human children, children, all mixed together, all friends. Do you ever wonder, asked, what would have happened if we had not fought, if we had just accepted our place? Minu watched a child help a human child climb a tree. 20 years ago, that's grandfather had burned cities. Now his grandchild was making friends with the people he had tried to destroy. I do not wonder, Minu said. I know we would have died, slowly, piece by piece. Our children would have grown up believing they were worth less than others. I would have forgotten what it meant to be proud. He smiled. We did not just win a war. We showed the galaxy that strength is not about size or power or how many ships you have. Strength is about knowing who you are and refusing to be less. A small child ran up to them. She could not have been more than 5 years old. Her scales were bright green, and her eyes were full of curiosity. Excuse me, she said politely. Are you the humans who saved the galaxy? Minu and looked at each other. They laughed. No, Minu said gently. We are just 2 old people who did what needed to be done. The child tilted her head. My teacher says humans are brave. She says you fought a war not to take things, but to make things fair. Your teacher sounds wise, said. The child smiled. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small flower, purple and gold. She offered it to Minu. This is for you, she said. Thank you for making things fair. Minu took the flower. His old hands trembled slightly. He looked at it for a long moment. Thank you, he said. His voice was thick. This is the most beautiful thing anyone has ever given me. The child waved and ran back to her friends. Minu watched her go. He held the flower gently like it was made of glass. That, he said quietly, is humanity's real victory. Nodded, she understood. Around them, the galaxy continued to turn. New problems arose. Old wounds healed slowly. Nothing was perfect. Nothing ever would be. But in a park on a rebuilt world, children from different species played together, and 2 old humans watched them with peaceful hearts. They had done what needed to be done. The rest was up to the future. And the future looked bright.